flow on how it is and add something about what I said, what I put in the
That's good.
newspaper and stuff. All right,
Cool.
go ahead. Just give me a minute when you let me talk without the question. But go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'll work with you.
Cool. So tell me your name. What's your name?
B.
B. And tell me about what's going on with your situation right now.
Well, I have a history of being homeless, which meant that I've been in tents throughout New Jersey and been on floors in places where just finding open buildings and whatnot to try to find some sort of shelter to get out of the element, in which kind of keeps a person stuck because there's no real support and whatnot like that, where on how people tend to judge someone who's walking on the street who has a backpack. As far as what I had put in the newspaper about criminals, that doesn't mean that I'm saying that people are bad people. It's just on how people tend to stereotype someone who's walking on the street. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad, but they're in a situation where sometimes a person feels like there's no real help that they're getting from anyone. And then I came across the Missionaries of God in Dover, and I'm very thankful for that. That I could get a hot meal and a pair of clean socks, because being homeless, it's not having a pair of clean socks is huge, and some people just don't realize on just the little things that makes a big difference.
How long were you homeless before you were able to come into this facility?
Well, I've been homeless for approximately about 2 years plus, bopping around different places, going to different places to try to get some assistance, in which, unfortunately, there's a lot of denial, in which, on how sometimes these different systems, in which I won't speak about, that some people go on a particular level as far as what they're available to get and what they're not, and which doesn't seem fair to a person, especially when a person tells their story about, like myself, being homeless.
And what is your story? Were you working before and just lost your job? Like, how did you become homeless?
Well, I'll brief a little bit. Sometimes I'll kind of brief and get to the point that sometimes there's very big celebrities who were homeless, and at one point in my life I was a DJ, and where I was making a whole lot of money, but what happened is, unfortunately, things changed, and I wound up on the street because from knocking on doors and looking for help or looking for places to stay, there's just some people just don't open their door. And again, I'm thankful for Joanne Tyler, who actually opened the door to me, and the Missionaries of God.
That's great.
To help me out.
And where are you staying now? Where are we sitting right here?
We're in Roxbury right now, which is it's northwest New Jersey, in which there's a shuttle that comes by Monday through Friday, in which can take us, Roger and myself, and anyone else who was in this similar situation. They can go over to Dover, which is basic transportation, but the situation is very difficult to find work, because on a day-to-day basis really don't know where I'm going to be in order to build a physical address to hold down a job.
And tell me a little bit about the conditions that are out and where you were living when you were homeless most recently.
Well, the conditions are very they can be very severe at times, because what's happening is that when you're living outside in the woods, you're up against the elements, plus you're up against situations of not being able to stay at a place and relax and constantly on your feet and moving around. Meaning that, for instance, when I was in the woods in a tent, when daylight comes, you really can't stay there, because what happens is that there's other people who sometimes it's not the best place to be throughout the day. It's just a place just to sleep in the night, and without a TV, without a toilet, without running water, without a shower, and sometimes even without a friend.
And what do you do to sort of survive in those conditions? How have you been able to manage that for 2 years?
Sometimes you kind of get adjusted to it, but then again you get really tired to it, which means it can really wear a person down to a point where all different kinds of illnesses can happen. Like for instance, there's some people who actually die out there because they think that no one actually is out there to help them. And so they think, well, no one's out there to help them, and it lowers their sense of belonging. And fortunately, I kept things going, and I wound up in different places, strangers' places where I stay on the floor, which wasn't the best thing, but it basically came down to, as far as the need to what a person does in order to get through their day.
Well, what can people do to help you and other people that are in your situation?
Well, I would think, like, again, just because a person walks on the street who's wearing a backpack. I mean, there's a lot of people who walk on the street in a backpack. That doesn't necessarily mean that a person's going to go up to them and hijack their car. That doesn't mean that they're out there to rob a bank. That just means that doesn't mean just by the way they look to judge them. Because again, a stereotype calling a person a criminal doesn't mean that person's bad. That's not what I'm saying. It's basically on how people stereotype. Well, you're not driving a fancy car, so that means there's something wrong with that person. Well, how come that person's walking into the woods? It's basically what happens is the thinking mentality of some people. Not to say that their thoughts are bad or not bad, but just my opinion is that just because a person looks like they haven't taken a shower in a week and looks like they're kind of to themselves, that doesn't mean that they're a bad person at all. That means that there's really good people out there, and those good people out there could really make a difference in the world. Only if the people out there would give them an opportunity to make that difference.
And what can people do who really do want to help to help you? Can they? What would you need to donate? Food, to donate money, clothes? What would be the most helpful for you and your other people in your situation?
Well, I can't really speak for other people, but I'll send a voice out there for other people and myself that to donate as much as possible, and think about that there's people out there who take the little things in which people don't even think about, and it's really a big thing, like a pair of socks. To donate some funds, as much as possible. It's not like I'm saying, looking for a handout, but a hand up. And what happens is that to give someone a sense of belonging by saying, hey, we know you're out there, we can help with finances, jobs, a steady roof over a person's head instead of moving about every day, every month. Where are you going to go next? Where's going to go next? Because to be honest with you, you don't really know where you're going to be going next. It's a toll on a person's entire being, because one, how are you supposed to hold down a job when you don't know what your physical address is? We're supposed to put 38 Mockingbird Lane. It's just not as a joke, but it's actually factual that what employer is going to say, okay, well, what's your address? And because you don't know where you're going to be going the next month and the next month, what kind of address are you supposed to put there in order to say to hold down a job for W-2s for that reason? So, yeah, briefly, I would think for people to I would like to send out a voice for people to understand that there's people out there who are good people, and to not judge them just because of the way they look, and to not saying dig down deep in your pockets and give us this and that because you feel pity, because pity isn't really the situation. It's more of that, we're all here to be together as one and be as much supportive to one another as possible.
Right.
And to think, well, you know what, the Super Bowl is coming up. How about why not if you can, please send some funding to the Missionaries of God to help people like myself and others to continue on our journey.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
That's my